Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So I look for all sorts of interesting shows. We, of course, we have doctors, lawyers, we have all sorts of people. But I came across something that the title was, Insurers Find BrainHQ Exercises Reduce Car Crashes in Real-World Field Trials. And, of course, down here in South Florida, we have a lot of elders driving, and they should. But we want to figure out what's going on in their brain. As a matter of fact, as I'm driving along on I-95 and I see all these people driving, I said, whoa, what are our brains doing? So I was very fortunate to hear from a Dr. Henry MAHNCKE. That's correct, right, MAHNCKE?
Yeah, perfect.
MAHNCKE, okay, of Posit Science, Posit Science, Posit, Posit Science. And he has done a lot of research on this. The conference that he actually is addressing is called The Eye, the Brain, and the Auto. This is very unusual. So why don't you tell us how you even got to think about this?
Well, I've been thinking about brain training for quite some time now. I did my PhD in neuroscience out here in San Francisco in California. And I was fortunate enough to work for a researcher named Dr. Michael MAHNCKE, who's really a legend in the field of brain science. And the reason he's a legend is he was really the first person who figured out that the adult brain is capable of reorganizing and rewiring itself. And that's really opened the door for what we can do in terms of brain training.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because years ago there was a wonderful book I read and had the author on. It was the plasticity when it first came out, when people realized. Yep. And was that what you're talking about a little bit?
It might have been that. It might have been that book. Most books that cover brain plasticity do talk about Mike MAHNCKE and his work, and he's really the founder, I may put it, of that field. And, before he started his work, back in the 70s, if you asked people how the brain worked, everyone would have said, "Well, the brain's like a computer chip that's inside your head, right? It's got all these wires and all these connections." But like a computer chip, it just wears out over time. I think all of us have had a 5 or 10-year-old computer that doesn't work that well anymore, right?
Right.
And what Mike showed in his research was that that's really the wrong way to think about the brain. The right way to think about the brain is that it's constantly adapting and changing and rewiring and reorganizing itself in response to what we ask it to do. And the reason that's exciting and hopeful is what it means is that we can do certain kinds, if we ask our brain to do the right kinds of things, we build the right kind of brain training exercises or other activities, we ask that brain to do the right things, it'll rewire itself in a helpful way. And if it rewires itself in a helpful way, then maybe we can keep a sharp brain that lasts as long as our body does. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
That's fantastic. What a great, I can see the demonstration. So what do you use to show people what you've come up with besides talking?
So, we've, of course, what we did is we, had studied this kind of brain science in the labs at the University of California, San Francisco for many years. And we started the company, Posit Science, when Mike called me up and said, "Hey, we spent a long time helping rats and monkeys. It's probably about time we helped some people." And that made sense to me. So I joined the company at that point. And what we've been working on is building these software-based brain exercises. These are brain exercises that a person can do on a computer, on their phone, or on an iPad. And what they're designed to do is make the brain faster and more accurate, so the person can they can think faster and focus better and remember more. And what makes us really different, people have probably heard a lot about brain games, and what makes us really different and what leads us to the news that we announced yesterday is that, we're really scientists. And so everything that we do involves working with researchers at universities and other organizations to do clinical trials, just the way you'd expect to see for a new drug or a new medical device, to really show that this approach to brain training works. It's not just a game, it's something that really rewires the brain and helps the person improve.
And vision is very important. It's one thing with the brain, but I also know that so many people have, all sorts of, the elder people can have macular degeneration, or they need, all sorts of help. So what if the brain's trained, but the vision isn't there?
That's a great question. And in fact, the brain training that we're talking about today is really explicitly focused on vision. It's about helping making a person's visual system faster and more accurate.
Wow.
And one thing that happens as we get older on the average, most people don't know a lot about, is that we actually reduce what's called our useful field of view. And what the useful field of view means is it's how much of the visual field can you notice in a single glance. And if we have a sharp, fast brain with good attention, when we look at something, we'll see that, but we'll also see everything in our peripheral vision as well. But as we get older, we start to lose that ability to notice things quickly and accurately in our peripheral vision. And it's important to say that's not a change in the eye. There's lots of things that can happen in the eye that affect our vision, but what I'm talking about now is actually something that happens in the brain. So that information actually comes in through the eye, it hits the brain. But as we get older, we get slower and lose attention in our peripheral vision. So even though the eye has done its job, it sent us the information, the brain's not processing it. And of course, that can lead to all kinds of challenges, but one of the biggest areas that leads to challenges is safe driving. So like you're saying, you're out on I-95. You are an excellent driver, I'm sure, but there's a lot of crazy drivers on I-95.
True.
And if what happens is that we don't notice something out of the corner of our eye because our visual system is slowed down and less accurate and our attention is not as sharp as it used to be, then we won't notice that crazy person coming into our lane or cutting us off or making an illegal left turn, and then we can end up in an accident that way. And so the goal of this kind of brain training is to retrain the brain to make it faster and more accurate so it notices this stuff quickly and allows a person to employ the safe driving skills that they already know.
So if someone now, I definitely want more information on this even for myself, but I remember that I took an AARP driving class just to get all my skills honed. And I was told, what I learned was, you never can rest. You have got to look to the right, to the left, up, down, everywhere.
Yep. And there's a lot of those kinds of driving classes out there, and they're probably good refreshers, right? You've been driving for a long time. Maybe it's helpful to get a reminder about exactly how bike lanes work, for example, or hey, what are the rules if two people arrive at a stop sign at the same time, and to give you those kinds of tips about looking around you. And so, while that education is good, it doesn't really improve what you might think of as the fundamental cognitive skills of the brain. It's not making the brain faster. It's not sharpening attention. And so what we're trying to do with our brain training programs is quite different than that, maybe even complementary, you could say. So what we want is a person to go through these training exercises on the computer and then walk away with faster vision and sharper attention, particularly in the peripheral world. So as they're out there driving, they're going to notice these things faster. You might think of it like, if you're prepping for sports, let's say you play basketball, you don't just go and play the game of basketball every day. You exercise, you hit the gym, and you run, and you do push-ups so that all your muscles are strong and work together so that when the game happens, you're ready. And this kind of cognitive training works the same way. It's not about teaching someone how to drive, because usually they know how to drive pretty well. It's about making sure that all those cognitive muscles, if I can put it that way, are strong and flexible and ready to be used when game day happens, which is to say you're driving down I-95.
That's just fabulous. And so someone can buy this? So tell us now how someone can get this from you, because I think everyone should do this, and especially here you're in San Francisco, and we can do it no matter if you're in New York or Mexico, wherever. So what do we have to do?
Yep. Well, let me start by telling you about just a wonderful partnership we've had with AAA, because that's actually one of the nicest ways to do it. So when this research first got done, it was done through a research study funded by the National Institutes of Health, actually. And what researchers in this very large study showed, which was called the ACTIVE study, was that if you delivered this kind of speed and accuracy training to people, that it actually reduced their at-fault car crashes by about 50%.
Really?
It's a pretty dramatic result, right? And these were real-world results. Like the researchers actually went to the Department of Motor Vehicles and literally counted the crashes that had been reported to people who were in the study. So we were working with these researchers, and of course we saw the opportunity to really take something out of the lab and into the world where it could help people. So we took this data to auto insurers and said, look, this has been shown to work. How about we work with you to make this available to your insureds to make them help them stay safe on the road and reduce their crashes? And one group that was really excited to work on this with us was AAA. And one of the reasons for that is they have a wonderful group called the AAA Foundation for Auto Safety that actually works out of D.C. And what that group's mission is to basically bring new innovation onto the road so that we can help make every driver safety. So with the foundation and then with the AAA Insurance Group, first based in Southern California and now in a number of states, what they did is they actually offered this brain training, and you're not going to believe this, but it's true. They offered this for free to people who were insured by AAA.
Smart.
Yeah, exactly. Because, if you really are if you're really avoiding crashes, then AAA, the insurer, is, of course, going to save money as well as achieving their mission of leading safer roads. And so the news that we announced yesterday was really the results from that first wave of work, and what AAA showed across a number of measures, crash-related claims, looking over 6 months, looking over 12 months, looking over as long as 3 years, is that the program really works in the real world, and they see a reduction in crash-related claims of about 25% for their drivers who do just 10 hours of training. Which is to say, after 10 hours of brain training, when we look over the next 6 months, 12 months, and even in some cases 3 years, we see that the risk of having a crash has gone down by a quarter. And that's a big deal, because as you know, having a crash for any driver, in particular an older driver, it's a big hassle at the least, and of course it can be life-threatening or worse at the worst. And so, reducing these kinds of risky situations by making sharper brains and keeping people out of the garage and out of the hospital even, it's a pretty amazing thing to come out of brain science.
Yes, this is phenomenal. I am sitting here spellbound. I'm sorry that we're not together so I could be watching you. And also I do a lot of Facebook Live, but I can't do it because you're not in front of me. But hopefully we will be able to do some more things after this. But I want everyone to know I'm talking to Dr. Henry MAHNCKE. Is that the way you pronounce your name?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Is that okay? Dr. Henry MAHNCKE. And he is with Posit Science. He's a PhD who's been doing the research with this. And he's calling in from San Francisco. And actually, this is rare. It's unusual. I've never heard of this before. But my next question will be, so if we take this for improving our driving, will it also improve everything else to do with the brain?
Yeah, there are a lot of further benefits. The news yesterday was about driving because we've worked through that analysis. And I want to make sure I answer I think I didn't fully answer your question before, so I'll finish that if you don't mind, which
Please.
is that people who have insurance through AAA in many states can call AAA and get the program for free. But it's not available in every state yet. We're working with them step by step. But if someone wants to try this out, they can actually go to our website, which is BrainHQ.com, like brainheadquarters.com, BrainHQ.com. And they can actually register for free and try out an exercise every day. And if they like it, they can subscribe and do a number of brain training programs, including the one that's focused on driving.
Oh, boy, you are really, I'm going to be in your world. I mean, I have to tell you, I happen to be a gerontologist. And so for me, this is very, very exciting stuff. And we all know that the brain is really where people are going to live to be 100, and they're going to be able to know that they're living for, to be 100.
Well, that's right, because medical science is keeping our bodies going, and that's fantastic, right? We all want to, live as long as we can and enjoy everything that's out there in the world and our families, everything the world has to offer. But nobody wants their brain to give out before their body gives out, That's intuitive and obvious when you talk to people, but there have been big scientific surveys that have shown this as well. And in many ways, this kind of brain science, as a gerontologist, I'm sure you know, this kind of brain science has lagged behind body science, if I may put it that way.
Yes.
We've thought a lot about how to get people exercising and how to eat right so that their bodies stay healthy for as long as possible. And, of course, amazing advances in medical technology that help us with things like heart disease or even cancer and things like that. But brain science, the brain's the most complicated organ in the body, as they say. So, the science is only now catching up with what we can do with the body. But, as well as those driving safety benefits that I've talked about, if you look across all these exercises, all of which are designed to help the brain be faster and more accurate, there have actually been more than 100 published research studies now showing various kinds of benefits that they deliver to various kinds of people. And probably one of the most important set of things is that, outside of driving, it helps people with everyday speed, helps people with memory, helps people with improved quality of life. And, when you start to go through these benefits, at first you think, well, how can this kind of brain exercise help with, everything from driving to memory? And the short answer is, well, it's kind of like physical exercise, right? If you have a good physical exercise program, you're out and walk 45 minutes a day, 3 times a week, or you're going to the gym to swim. It doesn't just help you with walking and swimming. By improving your muscle tone and by improving your heart health, all kinds of aspects of your bodily health get better. And it looks like that's the same thing is true with the right kind of brain exercise, that by improving the speed and accuracy of how your brain processes information, obviously this doesn't help you with the computer exercises, but it helps you with, well, just about everything your brain does. And when you step back and think about everything your brain does, well, it makes sense to invest in having a healthy brain, because the brain's involved in just about everything we do.
Absolutely. And so just walk me through, if I turned on my computer and I went to the HQ, BrainHQ.com, walk me through how it would start and what I would see.
Yeah, well, let me talk specifically about some of the exercises that we used in these driving studies.
Okay.
So, one of the key things that we're trying to do with the brain, as we talked about, is we want to have people have sharp, fast attention in their peripheral vision. So one of the exercises you might come across is called double decision. And the way this exercise works is you're looking at the computer screen, and you look at the center of the screen, and in the center you'll see a picture appear, like a little picture of a car or a truck. Could be one, could be the other. And you have to pay attention and figure out which one it is. And that sounds easy, but it goes pretty fast, so you have to pay really careful attention to the center of your visual field. At the same time that's happening, we ask you to split your attention, and there's going to be like a warning signal that appears in your peripheral vision. Then all that's going to go away real quick, and then you have to say, well, what did I see in the center of the screen? Did I see a car or a truck? And then where was that hazard in my peripheral vision? And so it starts off slow and easy. You have plenty of time to look at the screen. It's pretty straightforward to notice whether it's a car or a truck and where that hazard is. But it's adaptive. So it rapidly figures out, well, how fast is your brain? How good is your attention? And you might be different than me, and I might be different than my wife. And so very quickly the program adapts to each individual person so that it's pushing their brain just enough to make it drive change in the brain, because your brain has to work to change, but not so hard that it's super frustrating. And so as you go through the exercises, it gets faster to make your brain work harder. Those hazards in your peripheral vision move out further into your peripheral vision. There start to be more distractors, so it's harder to notice where the hazard is. It gets more challenging to notice whether it's a car or a truck. Those two items in the center get more similar. So we change all these things under careful scientific control to expand that field of view to make you faster and more accurate in peripheral vision. And you might notice one of the things is, well, it's not like driving, right? It's not like we're putting you in a driving simulator. Again, not like going to a driver's ed class and reminding you how to use your left turn arrows and so forth. This is intensive brain exercise instead.
Well, how long would it take to? I mean, you complete. There are probably sections, right? You just do some, and then there's a next number 2 and module number 3. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's actually hundreds of brain training levels, which maybe sounds like a lot, but each one only takes about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes to do. And so what we ask people to do is, once they to get started, again, it just takes a few minutes, and a person can try it out and see if they like it, and come back the next day, do 5 or 10 minutes, kind of ease their way into it. I never want anyone not to start because they think they don't have enough time. A little bit like physical exercise. If you're beginning an exercise program, you don't necessarily throw yourself into all of it the first week. Work your way up a little bit if you're like me. But then to keep it to training, we usually like to see people training at least about 90 minutes a week, an hour and a half a week, kind of like you do physical exercise, maybe 3 times a week for about 30 minutes each. And then people in the driving program that we talked about did about 10 hours of brain training total. And some did it in just a few weeks. They just kind of pushed their way through it. Some people took a few months, did a little bit more slowly. The most important thing, I think, for anyone is to find a schedule that works for them.
Yeah, this is spectacular. I'm sitting here with a smile on my face because, especially here in South Florida, and AAA is a wonderful organization, And I've been a member, actually, of AAA since the 1970s, probably before you were born.
That may be true, but I'm a lifetime member here in Northern California as well.
Right.
It's been very good to me and my family.
Yeah. And, I was thinking right now, they sell flood insurance. I was thinking, of course, of what's happening in on the west coast of Florida, right? Terrible stuff. But I want to keep going with this. So tell me, when did you decide to become a neuroscientist?
I became a neuroscientist when I was in college studying biology. And I was studying all kind of biology and biochemistry. But what got me the most excited was thinking about how the brain works. And the reason for that is because in many ways the brain's the most amazing thing on the earth and maybe in the universe, which is to say that you have about 3.5 pounds of cells in your brain, a couple 100 billion neuron cells all connected to each other. And somehow out of that comes everything we experience. Somehow out of that lump of stuff inside your skull comes hearing and vision and conscious thought and love and everything that happens. And it's really, frankly, sort of amazing as a scientist. So I knew that I wanted to study the brain, and that took me off to study the brain in graduate school, where I got my PhD, and at that point started to do work in how the brain changes and reorganizes itself through learning. And of course met Mike Merznick, who was my PhD advisor, and then went on to found Posit Science.
I see.
So step by step, I think my interests have really become not only how can we study how the brain works, but how can we take what we've learned and really turn it into things that help improve all of our lives through this kinds of advances in medical science and medical progress.
Right.
And it's exciting that this is really finally happening after decades of research investment in brain science. Now we're really learning things that can help people.
Right. Have you written a book yet?
No, I've been a little busy.
I know you have, but I know this will be a fabulous book,
There is a fabulous book. It's just that I didn't write it. So my boss and the co-founder of Posit Science, Mike Merznick, wrote a fantastic book called Soft Wired. And he called it that because, historically we thought the brain is hardwired. We now understand that the brain is soft-wired. It can be organized. And you can get this in Amazon and places like that as an ebook. And
what's the name of it?
Book.
It's called Soft Wired?
Soft Wired.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
By Michael Merznick. His name is spelled Merznick. And it's a great, great account because, of course, he's a world-famous scientist. And you might think that the book would be very dry or very abstract. But he's just he's a warm, funny, personable guy. And what the book is it's a series of stories about how his understanding of brain plasticity was built and changed over the years, and stories about people that he's worked with, both as scientists and as people who've changed their brains through brain training, and then some just really interesting thinking around what all of this means for how the brain works and how the body works and how we become the people that we are. So just a great book.
The name of the book of the author that I interviewed many years ago, I think the name of the book was The Brain That Heals Itself.
Yeah, Norman Doidge.
Yeah, he's great, right.
He is wonderful.
Isn't he fabulous? Right.
He really is. So chapter 3 of that book is actually all about Mike Merznick and this kind of brain plasticity-based training.
Oh, I have to go back to the book and read this now. This is great. This is such a coincidence because I get so many emails and so many people want to be on the radio and they want to write in my magazine. But somehow I was really tired and I saw this. I said, what is this? This is great. And so maybe he'll come on the radio. So, boy, this was fortuitous, and I am really glad that we're doing this. I thought while you were talking, though, what about hearing? Now, I know that your the vision, and then, of course, is so important, but how about the hearing part about this? The brain, is it affecting the hearing?
Oh, absolutely. So in the same way that your eye might be sending you good information, but your brain's not processing it. The same thing is true in all of our sensory abilities, whether it's hearing, touch, or so forth and so on. And in hearing, what happens as well is, as you know, we lose high-frequency hearing loss as we get older.
Yes.
And that's because of changes in the ear. But there are huge changes in the brain as well. And the biggest changes in the brain about hearing have to do with, again, how fast and accurately we can hear. And that's really important because speech is full of lots of fast, accurate information. You and I are on the phone right now, and everything that you're telling me and everything that I'm telling you our brains have to be processing information on the scale of milliseconds in order for us to understand each other.
Huh.
And as our brains slow down naturally as we age, and that millisecond processing is not as sharp as it used to be, speech can seem muddier. And that's why as we get older, often people have a harder time hearing in a noisy restaurant, or they say their grandkids talk too fast, or they don't like to talk on a cell phone because the quality's not good. It's not because their ear has changed so much, it's because their brain has changed. And in fact, when we first started Posit Science, we actually started on hearing exercises because we wanted to improve people's memory for speech. And we actually built exercises that make the hearing system faster and more accurate. And then ran large-scale studies, in this case with Mayo Clinic at USC, for example, and showed that people who went through this auditory speed and accuracy training actually improved their memory function by about 10 years. So by making the auditory system faster and more accurate, basically speech gets processed better, and then we can remember what we hear better. So I think there's just enormous applications for this kind of science.
Oh, my heavens. Well, this is one of my best interviews this week, and I hope to do a lot more with you. I'm going to contact you again. I want to see how we can work together because you have something that we need down here, and I am thrilled to death, and I am going to go back into the book and read chapter 3 to see about that. But all right, well, this will be put on YouTube, but may I call you again, and can we see how we can do something together maybe?
Yeah, I'd be delighted, and I'm really glad we sent you that email, and I'm glad we caught your attention.
Yes,
at the right time.
you did. This is brilliant, and thank you. I really, we do, as I said, we do it's called CURE, Cutting Edge Understanding Research and Medical Symposiums, and we do them here in South Florida, though. So maybe when we do our next one, we may have to get you to come down here because this is the cutting edge stuff that I look for.
Oh, well, fantastic! I'm delighted to hear it.
So thank you so much. We really will call. We'll be back in touch with you. Wait, let me just give everybody again how they can get to you, and it's called BrainHQ.com. BrainHQ.com, and that's Dr. Henry MAHNCKE, right?
Perfect.
Thanks so much, Henry. Appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Bye.